What up, world? This is the GoalNet recording live here from Chicago. And today we are doing a follow-up video to our Axis comparison with the EF floor and the Premier 2, but today we are focusing on the gloves. So with the pads, I had a beautiful comparison because everything was the same size, the same specs. I've messed around with my gloves a little bit, so it might be a little more difficult to compare them, but I will do my best, and hopefully everybody can follow along. In full disclosure, before we dive in, the pads are the biggest change of the line between any of the gloves. So definitely, if you haven't checked out the video comparing the Axis goalie pads to the EF4 and the Premier 2, the gloves are going to be more of a subtle refinement versus the pad is truly a new pad. And if you aren't watching that video and you're too lazy to go back, the Axis is definitely the replacement of the Premier and is definitely a stiff pad, but it truly kind of embraces the best features of the Premier line and the best features of the EFlex line and puts it into one cohesive new product that I think is really one of the safest pads on the market that most goalies are going to jump into and enjoy wearing. Enough about the leg pads. There's a whole 15 minutes on that. Let's dive into the gloves. So on the left, we have the CCM EFlex 4. On the right, we have the CCM Premier 2 and the last time I adorned white goal gear. And in the center, we have the new CCM Axis. So the EFlex and the Axis are a 580 brake. The P2 is a 590 brake. The Premier 2 has the angled finger protection. The EFlex and the Axis have the straight finger protection. The Axis also has my new most favorite feature in a customizer, which is the fit of the blocker hand. I was asking CCM for this, and I'm sure I'm not the only one because it's great. Hopefully, as everybody finds my content, I definitely don't move things like new options on goalie gear, but seeing that CCM is offering a regular and tight fit goalie blocker means that I'm not a lunatic, and some people definitely like a tighter feel in their blocker. So the Axis will be a tight fit palm versus the EFlex, and the Premier 2 will be the standard palm. But anyway, let's dive in, let's see what's new, and we'll go from there. All right, so in comparing these three gloves, you will notice they are all single T skate lace. That is a TGN spec that I get custom. I believe standard for all three of these models is the split T or the double T with a nylon lace strap. And at first blush from the camera angle at this, you may see or may think that there's not too much different between these three gloves, but there is. If we dive in here to the Axis, we will notice that this is, hear how hard that is when I hit it versus Premier or EFlex, it's much softer. This is a molded piece of backhand finger protection. So this is designed depending on your glove positioning in the RVH. This is designed to give you a little bit of extra protection versus this soft, flexible foam in the Premier 2 or the EFlex. So Premier is a little bit harder. EFlex is very, very soft and pliable. This one is molded. When they make a molded component, there's pressure that forces this together. And that means that anything that is made in a mold is very good at absorbing impact and flexing without breaking. So it makes it ideal for areas like this where we want it to absorb a puck impact without breaking. If you put a piece of hard plastic in the backhand of a glove that was not molded, it could be too brittle and stiff and eventually break on impact. So it's very key that when CCM tried to put a stiffer piece in the backhand of this glove, that they went with a molded component versus just a piece of sheet plastic that was cut. Second thing is a bit more subtle, but I think as goalies, we all appreciate details and we're all probably divas, so we hate it when things fray. All of these straps on Axis have a nice little rubber tip. So as we Velcro and adjust these time after time, they should not fray or cause any problems. As you can see, my Premier glove's the oldest. Premier 2 is the line that I probably put the most reps in one single season since starting the goal net, and it held up well. But I think we can all appreciate that as a nice, sneaky little feature. Okay, so if we open the gloves up, they are all pretty similar. The location of the wrist strap might be moved a little bit for range of motion, but all pretty much the same. As you can see, these are all game ready palms with the custom leather strap, and then they all have the Sure Grip liner inside. So in terms of the glove adjustments, this should be very comfortable. So if you're used to wearing a 600, a 590, or a 580, should be very easy to jump into the Axis glove. And that's one of the things too, when you are CCM, is they've had the best selling line at retail for many, many years. The 590 is the most popular break in the NHL and at retail. So when you have a winning recipe, it's always that tough balance of trying to find a product that makes it better than the one it replaced, but without losing that kind of winning formula or that winning recipe, as well as the audience that goes with it. So CCM didn't change too much with the gloves, subtle improvement on the backhand. And then let's take a look next at the inside of the palm of the glove. So if we look at the gloves, the two that are probably most relevant to compare are the EFlex 4 and the Axis, because those are both 580 versus this is the 590. And I've always found the 590 looks a little bit compact compared to the 580 glove. But real quick, one thing you'll notice is we have lacing here on the 580 and the 590 EFlex 4. 580 Axis, we have no lacing, just that very clean front. All three of these gloves as well have the D30 inside the palm as well. I think it's a little bit puffier and kind of easy to see on the 590, where it's a little bit more streamlined on that 580 style break. But as you can see, if you know your break in CCM, you're probably going to be able to jump in Axis very comfortably. And there shouldn't be too many surprises really with that glove. So again, most of the changes are to the backhand. I would say the game ready got a little bit better on this glove, but it's still, if I had to rank CCM, I would say that they probably have the least flexible glove if you're trying it on a retail store. And I'm sure if we asked the team at CCM, they would say that's by design, because whenever you do game ready, there's always that balance between having something that's too flexible, and anytime something is too flexible, it sacrifices protection. So there's always that balance in finding something that flex well and works well for the goalie out of the box, but doesn't compromise protection. And while we're on game ready, I think I covered this pretty well in the Axis deep dive, but as you can see, glove closes very well. Like I said, it's just going to be a firmer feel versus some of the other gloves in the market. I would go so far as to call them soft, but as you can see, the game ready is pretty solid. So next, let's take a look at the blockers. So between the glove and the blocker with Axis, believe it or not, I was most excited about the blocker. That's because if you compare these three blockers side by side, you will notice it instantly trying these three on in stores. The Axis is by far and away the lightest of the three. And as I mentioned, if you use the customizer, there's also an option for tight fit. As I've used all the gear that I've used over the last 3 or 4 years doing the goal net, I can say that I've randomly got picky about blockers because I found there's actually kind of a lot of a variance in how those fit. And having one that fits very snug to my hand but gives me range of motion all at the same time is key. And the tight fit from Axis definitely accomplishes that. But let's take a look at the sidewalls and the cuffs and the profile of the blocker to really dive into what's new. So true story, my dream in life would be to get the Premier 2 sidewall with the no binding and the straight finger protection versus the curve here. Unfortunately, I'm either really bad at ordering my gear or that is not an option at retail. But being that even though I love aesthetics, I value performance first. To me, I like the straight finger protection best in CCM's line. So I went with that on the Axis. The downside of that is that you get the binding, which I just think is a bit antiquated. So big fan of the Premier 2, but if you're not aware, these are your two options. Again, this is the curved finger protection, which should kind of more conform to your stick and your fingers, versus this is straight. The reason I don't like that is there's a few times I've dropped the stick and whatnot, and I just find the contour here kind of gets in the way, versus this blocks puck ramp ups but doesn't get in the way too much. And then when you order the straight, you do get the binding versus the non-binding, which looks clean and also might provide some additional wear. All three blockers do have the D30. You can see that orange material inside the finger. So speaking of puck ramp ups, if you do get one, this should be really great at stopping that. If we look at the boards, you can see that the EFlex and the Premier are about the same size, but the Axis is much thinner. This is one of the key reasons that this blocker is so light, is that there's no excess material in the build. And then this is also designed to give you hotter rebounds from the EFlex and the Premier. The Axis is going to be the hottest blocker in CCM's lineup. So that means that when you get a standard shot, the puck is most likely to go the farthest off this. And hopefully this is coming through clear in the video, but this is definitely the lightest blocker that CCM makes. And it also is the hardest rebound. So it's really a nice 1-2 punch when we think about the blocker here in this lineup. So with all three of these blockers, I did go with the one-piece cuff and not the old two-piece cuff, which would have a cut here in the lace. So this is a great comparison. You will see with the Axis line, this is actually segmented. So if we look at EFlex, we've got one solid piece in the back of the cuff. We look at Premier 2, one solid piece in the back of the cuff. With Axis here, this is actually segmented. So if we look up top, this piece is not connected to the rest of the palm. So this is one piece versus this is 1, 2, 3 pieces on the Axis. So what this is going to do is give the goaltender more flexibility so that when you move your wrist forward, this piece can articulate and flex. So huge fan of this cuff. I love the concept of the one-piece cuff on the P2 and the EFlex, but you can see how crazy wide I had that open. I did find it sometimes got in the way depending on which chest protector I was wearing, and I do rotate between those. So big fan of this, because when you go to move forward and kind of make a save, it flexes, and then it still, you know, kind of gives you that connected feel. So it's really a nice balance where the one-piece cuff feels snug and connected, but then it flexes when we need to flex it. Then, as I mentioned earlier, this is a new option. This is tight fit, which basically means between the back of the blocker board and the inside of the palm, there is additional padding. Really hard to see in the video, but versus Premier 2 or EFlex 4, and that just means that this glove, when we slide it on, it's just gonna feel more snug, and the blocker is actually gonna feel a bit more out in front of your hand if you go with the tight fit, which I find is better range of motion and better rebound control. And then if we compare the palms, all three of these have the shore grip. So the palm between these three should be pretty similar. And if you didn't notice it in the front, all three of these are the bindingless option as well. All right, so in summary, the Axis glove and blocker are not as, I'd say, completely new as the Axis goalie pad. They are more the subtle refinements that we'd expect from CCM with going from like an EFlex 3 to an EFlex 4 or a Premier 1 to a Premier 2. However, the blocker is definitely the newest piece in the line in terms of it having a new fit option, being thinner, having harder rebounds. Both gloves with the Axis are designed to give you better range of motion compared to EFlex 4 or Premier 2. And they also are going to have additional padding with those molded pieces in the blocker. It's in the wrist cuff. I dove in pretty deep on the glove, showing you the piece in the backhand. And those are designed if you ever get in unexpected positions in the RVH, as an example, to give you some additional protection versus the older CCM models. So thanks for tuning in. If you're watching at YouTube, please throw me a subscribe. This is the GoalNet signing out. And if you have any questions, throw them in the comments. Thanks for watching.